Good morning, people on Zoom. Where are you, Austin? It looks like you're in a cavern. Now you're in a museum. I can't hear you. Oh, you're muted. Unmute. I can't hear. Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right. Let's see if it lets me minimize. Oh. Ooh, that's nice and loud outside. All right. Good morning, people at home. I'm gonna go ahead and get roll done. Wish it would just make everybody small here. Real quick. All right, attendance. All right. Garrett, I saw you there. Austin, Zach, Jamaica. I don't see Jamaica yet. Are you there, Jamaica? You're not on my list. Okay, we'll do that for right now. Michael, you're there. Kaylee, are you there, Kaylee? I don't see Kaylee there yet. Kylie, there you are. You know, hold on. Kylie is Gracie on there, right?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Ashley, right there. Isaiah, you're there. Adrian. Adrian?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you? AJ, there you are. Harley. Okay, Taylor, you're here. Thomas, you're here. Faith, you're here. Griffin, Marguerite, something fancy. Eli, you're here. Online. I just made a mistake. I have to do all these present online. Oh, this is fun. Okay. And Michael, I don't see, are you online? No. Okay, so I'm going to close that out. I'll submit it and somebody will come in. If I ever submit something and you show up a few seconds later, make sure you email me and you tell me and I don't leave it absent. All right. Okay. Oh, Jamaica, you're there. I just did it, Jamaica. Okay. Attendance record. I must have missed you popping in. There we go. Okay. All right. All that's done. All right, today we're going to do a few things. So I did ask you to have your article in, a draft of it in by class today. If you haven't submitted a draft on Shobi, please go ahead and do that if you can. Right at the end of class, I'm going to divvy those out. We might do a little partnering up in just a second. And before Friday, so I would say Thursday night by midnight, you need to have an edited version back to your partner that edits for AP style. Don't worry necessarily about restructuring or any of that type of stuff. You're basically looking for AP style things in this in their article. And so I want you to, I think what I'm going to do to make things easier is I'm going to go through and partner you up and have you just email email your partner your paper, if that works best. And so I guess let's go ahead and do that with who we have in class right now. And so in class right now, I have 5 people. And so, yes, ma'am. Yes, Harley is right here. Harley, you have a request to be with Taylor. Is that
Yeah,
good?
that's fine.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So let me. Yeah, that's perfect. If you have a request, like if you have a friend in here that you want to go ahead and partner up with, then that is fine by me. So I'm going to go ahead and write Harley and Taylor. And so I'm just going to go into the list in here. Do you care? All right. Would you all mind partnering up? Just proximity. All right. And so let me pull up this again so I have a list of people so I don't forget anybody. Sorry, just getting through logistics. All right, so we'll do in my classroom right now. So Griffin and Marguerite. And so, Marge, yes, Marge. I like Marguerite though, it's pretty. All right, so Marge and Griffin, if y'all just make sure you get the right email addresses before we leave, that'd be good. And Faith, would you mind partnering with Thomas? Okay, so Faith and Thomas. All right, so people that are at home right now, let's see, does anybody else have a request? Austin?
One in the chat.
Yeah, we put ours in the chat.
You put it in your chat? Okay, perfect. So AJ and Eli. All right, Isaiah and Gracie. Okay. Anybody else have any in the chat you want to add in there? Okay, so Austin, would you mind going with Garrett? Would that be fine? If you would just, oh, I just saw that, Michael and Austin. Just kidding, Garrett. You don't get to be with Austin. Michael and Austin. Who are we missing?
I can go with whoever. It doesn't matter. Zach.
Zach?
Yes, ma'am.
Zach, I'll put you with Garrett. Is that good?
That's just
Yeah,
fine.
sounds good.
Okay. Ashley?
Yeah. Here I go.
Can maybe you in Jamaica?
Okay.
And if you need to share like emails or whatever in the chat below. So, and can everybody see the chat if you don't do it privately? All right, am I missing anybody? Zach, Michael, Jamaica, Isaiah, Harley, Gracie, Garrett, Eli, Austin, Ashley, AJ. Hey, that's everybody. That worked out. Okay. So your responsibility is to switch papers digitally by just emailing them or sharing them via Google Drive, etc. I want you to respond with AP style corrections. You can do it with track changes. You can print it out, write on it, scan it, email it back, however you do. And when you submit your final, I would like for you to submit what your partner gave you back plus your final draft. So it's kind of 2 things. So I see that you had edits with you. If for some reason your partner bails and doesn't give you those edits, then that's how I'll be able to keep up with that, okay? Does that sound good? Everybody okay with that? All right, we'll see how this works. This is my first time trying to do this in this capacity, so we'll make it work the best as possible, but I think that'll work just fine. It's just logistics managing 18 students in this way. So let's close out of chat. And so today, just for people at home, if you need to unmute yourself to say something, feel free, and we will, I'll hear you that way. All right, so I'm going to start today off with a little bit of AP style review. So I'm gonna share my screen at home, and we're gonna try to do this once a week. Like I said, just make sure that everybody has a review each week with what AP style expectations are. And so today we're going to start off. Everybody at home see my screen? You're good? No problems with that? And I'm going to share it like this rather than presentation because of the way Zoom lets me do it. But right now we're just going to review states, addresses, and geographical locations. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. It would help if I would plug that up. I was trying to wait until I got all like the matching people together. Let's see. There we go. All right. Every time I do that, it screws my screen up. One day I'll get all this right and then we'll be all in person again. Okay, so everybody at home see this. So states, address, and geographical location. This should just be a review of some of the things we went over before, but just some things in a little bit more detail so you're aware of what to look for when you are editing and when you're writing. I know a lot of the things that we're doing right now, you might not have to put a lot of geographical stuff in there or addresses, but you never know when that's going to come up. So first of all, with states, remember that you spell out state names, and these notes right here come directly from the AP Style book. So I'm just showing you exactly what the AP Style requires. The names of all 50 US states should be spelled out when used in the body of a story, whether standing alone or in conjunction with the city. So it doesn't matter if you're talking about the state of Nebraska or if you're talking about the city Omaha, comma, Nebraska. Both require full Nebraska, all right? No state name is necessary if it is the same as the date line. So what that means is if you are writing a story in California, you don't have to then say in California, blah, 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 again in your opening paragraph because people already know it's there. The date line, though, you use the abbreviation for, which we'll remind you in just a second. For example, a story dateline, here it is, Providence, Rhode Island, would be referred to as Providence Journal, not Providence, Rhode Island Journal. There are certain cities, and I might mention this later, but I'm going to go ahead and say it right now, that you don't need to add a state with. What are some that you can think of that you might not need to add a state with? Washington. I think that one is fine, but I think you might add the DC in the first reference so people don't think to mistake the state. What are some other cities that you might not need a state with? Atlanta, Los Angeles, New York City. And when you are talking about New York City, you add the city, at least at the first reference, so people don't confuse it with the state. And a lot of times you even add, when you're talking about New York State, you add the word state at the end so people don't mistake that you're talking about the city. That is a post in AP Style, so you can always reference that if needed. What are some others that you can think of? There's a whole list of them. It's going to be basically the top 10 biggest cities in the US. Dallas, exactly. So if you think a city is on the borderline, like Charlotte, look it up. Charlotte would require North Carolina at this point. So just make sure you kind of double check it before you leave out the state name. So there are 8 states that are never abbreviated, even in date lines or in postal codes, and that is Alaska, or date lines or text, Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, Iowa, Maine, Ohio, Texas, and Utah. What do you think the kind of cutoff is there? How many letters? 6, okay? So if it has 6 or less, it's not abbreviated. In the body of stories, use the state name and textual material when the city or town is not in the same state as the date line. So when necessary, avoid confusion. Springfield, Massachusetts, Springfield, Illinois. If there's 2 of the same, you need to always put the state. There are, I think, something like 7 Shelbys in the US. You'd always have to put North Carolina in there. There's 2 Boiling Springs within like 20 miles of each other. And so I don't know if y'all are aware of that, but there's a Boiling Springs, South Carolina, like 20 miles down the road. So you would always put the state with that as well. When to use abbreviations, like we said, date lines, party affiliation. So if you're talking about the Democratic representative from North Carolina, you would, it would be abbreviated at the end of his name. In postal needs. Headlines, avoid using state abbreviations in headlines when possible. Traditionally, headlines were cut as short as they could because of the inches given to a headline in a newspaper. And so they would try to use things as short as they could to get as much as you could in a headline, but now avoid using state abbreviations in a headline when possible. Another thing with headlines, just to kind of throw that out there so you can see how that works. Have any of you ever read a headline and it just has a comma in the middle of it that separates 2 things? The comma replaces the word and in a headline. You don't have to use the word and in a headline, you would just put a comma. And that's just a way that goes back to old typesetting days where you're trying to, you actually write stories by the number of inches you're given. And so you do it like that. So city, capitalize the city if part of a proper name or an integral part of an official name, regularly used or as a regularly used nickname. Kansas City, New York City, the Windy City, what's that? Chicago, the City of Light. Is that LA? I'm not sure. What's the City of Light? Fun City? What's Fun City? Is that Orlando? I'm not sure. Lowercase elsewhere. So you're not going to say the city council decided last night and capitalize city council. Why not? Is there a proper name listed with that? No. But if you would say the Shelby City Council, then you could capitalize it. But lowercase it unless it is in association with a proper noun. So just so you know, here are what abbreviations look like. And so the ones that are postal codes are the ones that you would use on like on a letter. Or if you're putting the address of something down at the bottom for reference, you would use these right here. And the date lines, party affiliation, you would use these abbreviations. And notice the ones here are the ones that are not abbreviated. So Caliph, that's always one that throws people off because you're probably grown up, you think it's just CAL, but not in this, it's CALIF. Other ones that might be a little bit different than what you think and here the difference between like North Carolina in date lines versus North Carolina in postal codes are the periods. So you use periods in date lines or in party affiliation references, but in postal codes there's no periods in 2-word states. So just little things. Like for VT here, notice it's the same VT, but in the first reference, it's lowercase t. So just some things to put in your head, tuck back in there. All right, so abbreviations. Use the abbreviations avenue, boulevard, street only with a numbered address. So it has to have that number there before you abbreviate it. If it's just the street name, you spell out the type of street it is. Avenue, street, boulevard, lane, any of those other ones that are used, circle, all those ones that are used like that. Lowercase and spell out when used alone or with more than one street name. So Massachusetts and Pennsylvania avenues. Because you're talking about two, it's not a proper noun anymore. You're making it more of, with both of them, it just needs to be lowercase, just a rule. All similar words, alley, drive, road, terrace are always spelled out. Capitalize them when part of a formal name without a number, lowercase when used alone with two or more names. Any questions about addresses? For numbers, here's where we get into some of those exceptions with writing out numbers 1 through 9. Use figures for addresses. So you would say 9 Morning Circle. Spell out and capitalize 1st through 9th when used as street names. So like 5th Avenue in New York, you would write F-I-F-T-H. But then when you get up to 10th Avenue, it would be the number 10. Abbreviate compass points. So this would be northwest, south, DeKalb Street, those types of things. Don't abbreviate if the number is omitted. So east 42nd Street, west 43rd Street, K Street, northwest. No periods and quadrant abbreviations. So just NWSE, unless customarily local. So if that's something you wouldn't have to worry about. When you are writing PO, always use periods in it for box numbers. And then last thing for today, in general, lowercase, north, south, northeast, northern, etc., when they indicate compass direction, but capitalize them when they are talking about regions. So if you're talking about the South, and you're referring to the South in the US, it would be capital. But if you're talking about southern weather patterns, that would be capitalized as well. But when you are talking about a direction, the Midwest is spreading eastward, you're just talking about the way it's going, and so that would be lowercase. If you think it's referring to a specific location, capitalize it. When in doubt, probably capitalize it. As long as it's not just being general with it. So these are some just like nitpicky little things, AP style for addresses. It's the way they've decided to do it, and just some good things to remember. And what time is it? 9:22. All right. I did have, if you would like some practice on this, I don't know if we have enough time to go through all these, but there is a good Oxford University Press AP style quizzes that you can go through, click the different answers on, and then submit, and it tells you if you got them right. You have to make sure you're not a robot to submit them though. So for instance, select the sentence free of errors in AP style. Anybody, y'all take a second, look at this, and we'll see which one's right. If you think you know, holler out. Which one? B? you're right with that one. Okay, so let's click it. Let's do another one. So B, what's wrong with A? What's a giveaway wrong thing? 31st Street, it should be the things. So what's wrong with C? Same thing. You know that's not right. You know that's not right. Right here. Should north be abbreviated? Yeah. What's wrong down here? 11 should be the numerals, okay? So we're looking for the things we know are wrong. Let's do one more. Select the sentence free of errors. I'm gonna go down and do another one down here. All right, number 4, everybody look at number 4. Anybody at home have an idea?
Would it be D?
It is D. What's some giveaways that it's not up here? First of all, this isn't part of this, but what's the correct way to abbreviate captain? This way, CAPT dot. And so we know we can mark those off right away. And then, so what's wrong with this one right here? What did they abbreviate that they did not need to abbreviate? Circle,
Please.
correct. Okay. And PD, correct. Wouldn't want to do that either. All right, so practice these on your own, take time, get good at it. But it's through the Oxford University Press reporting for the media AP style quizzes. It gives you them all different types of categories you can choose from. I do. I will. I'll post it for the link. So I'll post the link on the syllabus. All right. So last 20 minutes of class, we're going to kind of go over the last little bit of interviewing, and let me see where we left off. Because I think we were here when we left off. So when you are concluding your interview, make sure you thank them for your interview, and remember to, are you supposed to offer to show them your story before it's published? No, right? That's one of the things to remember. Other things to review that we talked about last week. What are some things you need to bring to an interview if you're able to do it in person? Right, so I want to make sure you bring multiple ways to record what they're saying. So notepad, some type of device to record. Do you need to ask permission to record? Yes, it's ethically correct to ask for permission. All right. Has anybody ever heard of Fresh Air on NPR? Any NPR fans here? Fresh Air is a long-running program on NPR that is hosted by a really well-known interviewer named Terry Gross, and she is known for her interviewing skills. She's known for kind of getting the best story out of people, and so this is a really good example of in a normal if we didn't have Monday off, I would have we would have listened to one of her interviews, but for time's sake, we're not going to. So if you have time on your own and you're really interested in hearing someone interview for best practices, she is a great one to listen to. But that is Fresh Air. They have podcasts. It is a really good podcast if you're interested in those. And those are and they're always very interesting. And there's some that are short and there's some that are longer. And she gets really great stories out of people. And so if we have time later on, we might do that. So what do you do right after your interview? So you're done with it, you get home. What is the best thing to do? Soon after you finish, you want to reflect on the interview yourself and make some notes. Don't put it away and not think about it for a few hours, because you're going to forget. And you're going to think of some things later on that you needed to remember for your story. So go ahead and do some outlines. Outline what are the highlights of the interview. Jot down ideas that you have that might have been spurred from the interview about writing the story. And then make sure you rewrite some of your notes to make sure they make sense. When we are interviewing, it is just human nature to jot down things and write it, and then you go back and look at your notes and you're like, I have no clue what I just said. So go back, make some sense of what you just wrote down while it's fresh in your mind, so you'll be able to recall it later by what you said. You, of course, have it recorded, but your mind also is going to be remembering some things that might not even be come back to you by listening to the recording. Yes, ma'am.
In our current case, is it okay to email somebody questions since like
Absolutely. Absolutely. Email questions are really always acceptable. You know, it's best, in my opinion, to have a conversational interview, because you do get some answers, or you might be spurred to ask other questions because of some answers that might lead to a better story. But in today's case, it's more than happy to, or I'm more than happy for you to email questions. However, always kind of end with, can I follow up if I have an additional question? Because if something you read that says, oh, I really want to know that, don't be afraid to shoot another email and say, do you mind if I ask one more question? And, you know, get that as well. And so that's a good question. All right. So developing your questions, when you are thinking about what to ask, make sure you have your audience in mind when you're thinking about that, not just your own motivations, but what do people want to know? What are some questions people would want answered? If you're interviewing the school president about the school's decisions to you know, start a new policy on campus, what are questions that students would want to know about that policy? What are the reasonings behind it? What are some things that are going to be that everyone's going to be thinking and not have the access that a reporter would to actually ask the person in charge? What information should you know about a person or situation before you go into it? Make sure that you know that as well. Don't go, you know, ask someone, well, what job do you do? And you're asking the president of the university. I mean, of course you should know that, but know the roles, know some of the things about it as you're developing your questions. So you're not asking things that they're going to be like, well, does this person even take time to get to know me before? Do you even know who I am? Type thing. It shows some respect if you do a little bit of prior investigation. So ways to use interviews in your writing. When you, like I said, this interview lesson right here will carry on when we start doing our personal profiles or our feature stories. But you need to incorporate interviews in almost everything you write for news purposes, for journalistic purposes, because your ideas are great. My ideas are great, but writing is always better when you are the reporter taking other people's ideas and then making sense of them and putting them together like a puzzle for a story. Think of it as different strings that you are weaving together to make a tapestry. And I've had some people that try to write articles and they write like a research paper, and they might write things that they believe and they think, or I've heard this, and maybe they're reporting from, you know, their own beliefs, but it is not good practice to attribute something without interviewing someone about it or doing research. You can attribute things to what the American Heart Association says on their website. So according to the American Heart Association, there are, 52% of people will deal with a heart condition in their lifetime. That is a completely made up statistic. So don't quote me on that. But know that you do other research as well. Don't just get all your stuff from interviews, but look at research that's been going on. Go to the experts that are going to have published results of things like surveys, research projects, or statements of belief out there. And so even though you can't maybe access the American Heart Association's president, you can use things that they have said on their website, and you don't need to put a long web address out there and cite it like you would an MLA paper. You would just say, according to the American Heart Association. I think in today's age, you don't even have to say according to their website, because their website is just a representation of what they believe. And so according to is a good enough attribution for that. Any questions about that? Okay, so for the last few minutes of class, I usually have everybody in here and we have a good discussion about this. So we're going to try to do this the best way possible. But I want you to think about a famous person or a historical person you would like to interview about a specific subject. And I want you to use 10 minutes in class right now to write 10 open-ended questions that you would want to ask. So for instance, if you were going to get the opportunity to interview Carl Bernstein about the Watergate, you might ask, how did you get to work on the Watergate story? So I want you to think right now, challenge yourself to think of a historical person, can be alive or dead, but what are 10 questions that you would want to ask him or her about something in that happened in their life? Remember to practice the points we discussed. So take a few minutes and do this. People that are home that I can't see, y'all do this as well. And then while you're doing that, I'm going to post the, how do I get out of this? There we go. I'm going to stop my screen share for just a second and look up. All right, so I posted that link on the syllabus for you. My brain is not working today. And then I'm going to look for the file that I have. Yep. And then I'm also going to post one other thing that is I've found very beneficial in the past, and it is some example questions plus some follow-up questions, and it gives a good starting off point when you are trying to develop questions and you get stuck. I'm going to link that here. All right, so people at home, if you can see my questions, I've linked the AP style quizzes right here if you want to practice on your own. And then right here are some example questions that should help you in the future. And now if you're looking for interview question examples, and then some good practice follow-up questions. So if someone says something and you don't necessarily know how to respond or you want more information from them about it, these are some good practice ways of asking that as well. So I'll leave those up for you as you're brainstorming some questions. Y'all see that okay? Let me see if I can zoom in. Ooh. All right, take about 2 more minutes to brainstorm up some things. And then I'm going to ask a few people to share, a few brave souls. All right, anybody willing to share who you picked as your person to interview in class? Anybody here? Marge?
I picked Amelia Earhart.
Amelia Earhart. Okay, what would you want to ask her other than where are you?
I asked what inspired her to attempt to make that circumnavigational flight around the globe.
Okay, so someone's inspiration is always a good place to start because you get backstories and you get where people get their motivation from. So that's a good one. All right, anyone else want to give me their person and one question they would like to ask them? Anybody in here in class? Taylor? You want to share? Huh?
Is that you want me to?
Sure.
Okay, so this is like a famous sports person. His name is Peter Stokowski. And his brother had not a farm ever.
So they're horse breeders, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, during lessons, what do you stress? And during shows, what do you stress? Like, how do those differ?
Okay, so the difference between two things that they would want you to do. Okay, all right, that's good. Anything else in class about want to be brave? All right, anybody at home want to be brave? Share who you would like to interview. One person shares, we can go.
I share.
All right.
I chose Oprah. I would ask her, looking back over your career path, is there anything that you would do different?
That's a great question. So, having people to look back and reflect on themselves. So those are great. So when in doubt, these are some good questions to use to kind of springboard off of, and make sure that you remember to email your partner your article to get some AP style feedback on. And one other question I have, and this is just throwing this out there, and if anyone has interest this semester or next, we are looking for somebody with the GW Today online newspaper for some social media management assistance. And so if you're wanting any experience in that, email me, and I'm looking for some help, just someone to kind of run that side of things. As we publish things to kind of get that out quickly. So if that's something you're interested in, it would be good experience to put on a resume. I'd be looking for someone who can design some graphics and help publish across multiple platforms. So throwing that out there. If anybody's interested, let me know. If not, I will be looking forward to reading your final papers on Friday. And I will see you back here next week. And we will be choosing another topic for one more hard news story before we jump away from hard news and get into feature stories. So go ahead, if you have an idea, start thinking about that, and I will see you on Monday. All right, have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.